Welcome to Insights of All Trades with Cole and Nick. This is where we talk to people we meet along our journeys through medicine, military service, sports, education, and beyond. We hope you enjoy. All right, here we are. Very first podcast of Insights of All Trades. I'm Nick.
And I am Cole.
Today we're just going to kind of give you guys a brief overview of our goals with this podcast, and we're going to try and explain our reasoning, where we're coming from, what we want to get out of it. So, Cole, if you want to take it away.
Yeah, so I don't know if you can remember like the inception stages of the podcast. I truthfully can't. I feel like it was maybe like 3 or 4 months ago.
I don't know. Yeah, because both of us, for a few months, we were just kind of pushing ideas on each other from other people we were listening to with podcasts. So, like, I think it started when we went to those sensory deprivation tanks. On the way back, we had like an hour drive or something. I think you threw on a Joe Rogan podcast.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, nice, dude. I love Joe Rogan. So we were going back and forth with that. And I guess like the next few days, we were just sending each other like a barrage of various different podcasts that we loved. And then somewhere along the lines, maybe like a month later, we're like, this is pretty cool. Maybe we could like do our own podcast, like take a stab at it. And now it's been, I guess, probably like 5 months since then. That was around Christmas break, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when we went to do the tanks.
Yeah. So it's kind of been in the works for a while. I guess we decided next time we were both home we were going to do it. We were first like thinking about trying to do it over Skype or something, but I don't think that the audio quality would have been that great.
Yeah.
And it's way better to do it in person, I think. So that's kind of how it started.
Yeah, I felt like what got it off the ground is that we were homies before going to the sensory deprivation tanks.
Yeah,
but I don't think we realized how like-minded and goal-oriented we were until our infamous sensory deprivation tank experience.
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. And then, like Nick said, bounced a lot of podcasts off of each other. And I want to say spring break was when we were like, let's try to get this off the ground.
Like, we need to do this. Like,
and you had audio equipment, and our friend Hunter, who is behind the camera right now, shout out to Hunter, chimed in and said he would love to help with us getting it off the ground. And here we are. And welcome to Insights of All Trades.
Yeah.
So do you want to talk about kind of our plan with like who we want to have on and whatnot?
Yeah. So when we first started talking about this, we kind of had been explaining how like we've met all these great people so far. We're only 23, 22, but we've already done like 4 or 5 years of schooling each, like after high school. So we've been meeting all these cool people, in high school, even like as far back as like, our childhood friends that are doing these great things. They have these awesome ideas, and they've been dedicated to various different disciplines, people with bodybuilding, people in medicine and pharmacy, some military people. Like, we've got all sorts of things, all sorts of people that we think have some great ideas that we'd just like to share with everyone, because we think like why should this information just be held in these people's minds?
Yeah. I agree with you, dude. I think it would be doing a disservice to other people not to put out what I think are like some life-changing mentalities, I guess, as a way kind of just to cap it all together between professors, athletes, people in the military. Yeah,
whatever you want, like anybody we meet, really. And that's like another thing. We're kind of just open to all sorts of ideas. If somebody has a great idea, we have various different social media platforms and things like that. You can reach out to us if you have some sort of, trick or insight, as we'd like to call it. Just various different things that you go about your life and how you've gotten to be where you are, like your success stories, things like that. So we've had some people, we shared like a notes thing via like iCloud of all these different people that we'd met so far that we're like, these would be great people to get on the podcast. So we're going to try and like chip away at that over the next, I don't know how long. That's a lot of names on that.
Yeah.
But I think that'll be pretty, it should be a pretty cool adventure, I think.
I agree. And just to preface our very untimely uploads to come, we we are on our own very different journeys right now. Nick will be going out to fulfill some Army obligations out west in about a week, so we can dive into that for a little. But it can be very sporadic with how often we'll be uploading.
Yeah.
Maybe as often as one per week and maybe as little as one per couple months.
Yeah.
So we apologize for that in advance.
Right.
For any listeners.
If we can somehow figure out to get like a remote studio set up for both of us, I think that would be pretty cool, because right now I'm living in Pittsburgh and Cole's doing school in Wilkes, so they're probably like 5 hours apart.
Yeah, it's a haul.
Yeah, so we meet halfway in the middle in our hometown in Juniata County. This is all in Pennsylvania. But, it doesn't always happen that we can meet up at the same time with, exams and all sorts of things like that with our school. So, yeah, just be patient with us if you enjoy the podcast, that is. And we're going to try and do as much as we can with it. Try and see if we can reach out to some people and get them on the show. So do you want to, give a little spiel about who you are, where you came from?
Yeah, I'd love to kick it off. I think the best way to start with just what I'm obsessed with would be education, wrestling, Christian faith, and being obsessed with the idea of can I exploit my full potential and everything we can do. And I kind of going back to what Nick and I were talking about with how we are like-minded, I think that's what made us pretty close in the last 6 months of just being all in different areas of life, but the commonality was that we were just all in about something.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree.
And I'll go down a very quick rabbit hole, but I was just talking the other day to our friend Taylor, who's into bodybuilding. We were talking about how it's become demeaning for someone to ask if you have hobbies about something, or have some hobby, because we're I don't have hobbies, I have obsessions about something. And so I have these several obsessions that I've been diving into since close to 5 years ago for wrestling. That's what put me on the path of working towards some single goal. So, for example, I just got home from school, so I was digging through some old stuff, cleaning out my room, found this notebook that I had just yesterday I wrote the same sentence.
Oh, yeah, I saw that on your Snapchat story.
I wrote, I will qualify and wrestle at individual states this season, or this postseason. Mm-hmm. And I had wrote that 5 times a night every time before I went to bed. And I did that for close to a year, from the time my junior postseason ended up until my senior postseason. And I can't remember exactly what it was, but I multiplied it out, and it's in the high 30,000s.
Yeah, you were just flipping through pages.
Of how many times I wrote that sentence. So that's a pretty good example of the person I became through wrestling. Then when I got to college, I channeled that same hunger of being goal driven towards something with school. So in high school, I think this is a very common high school experience, but I didn't put forth a lot of effort and still got good grades.
No, yeah, definitely.
Wasn't our valedictorian, but was still top 10 student, and went to college thinking that I don't know if I thought I could coast, but I thought I would have a lot more free time. I thought it would still be easy to maintain good grades. And the first college quiz I got was in organic chem, or our gen chem, our freshman year. It was a 10-point quiz, and I got 50%. And for some reason, that was so hard for me to swallow that I don't know if I've ever seen anything I certainly never seen a failing grade before, just to put it that way.
Yeah.
And it ate at me so much that I went back to my room. I was I need to come up with some means of making sure I work towards school the rest of my 6 years at Wilkes for the pharmacy program, the same way that I've been working for wrestling. So what I started to do is I made a minimum. My freshman year, the minimum was 4 hours outside of class. I'd study every single day, but every single day, including the breaks throughout the school year, whether it be fall break, spring break, etc. And I became obsessed with, can I meet this time limit I set for myself every day? Even if I feel ahead, which most of the time, especially during freshman year, I would once I started adopting that training, if you will, that studying schedule.
That's some ambition, man.
And it grew. It ended up, now I do like a 6-hour minimum and even more class time, and still throughout like the wrestling season. And I became obsessed with school the same way I was previously with wrestling. And then, of course, the grades will follow.
Yeah.
Sometimes at the expense of what people throw under the umbrella of a fun college experience. So
yeah, and it should be noted that Cole is still wrestling too at Wilkes, so you got that on top of all your schoolwork.
Oh yeah,
and you're training for a marathon. You're doing all sorts of stuff, man.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's pretty.
I think that catches my life pretty much up to schedule.
Mm-hmm. Do you want to talk at all about like where you see your future going with pharmacy? You know, I know you mentioned medical school before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a lot of ideas bouncing around in my head right now, and it's an interesting time to have this podcast because I've been at like a career crossroads. So to draw this back a couple years, from like my end of freshman year of college and on, I was dead set on going to medical school. And for a while, I would say that I would definitely want to be an orthopedic surgeon because I was fascinated by it, but I didn't know like all of the different specialties.
Yeah.
And then I got to do a pharmacy rotation, but there's a prescriber rotation that you do just to like broaden your horizons. Mm-hmm. Was with an internal medicine physician, Dr. John City. He practices up in Wilkes-Barre. And I was with him for the 4 weeks I had to be with him. And he was kind enough to let me continue coming to Shadow each Friday, even after my rotation ended. I really liked internal medicine. I felt like pharmacy gave me the biggest foothold compared to people that are coming in with non-pharmacy experiences, because it's a lot of, I don't know what the word would be. It's very encompassing with the medications I use, given that you don't have a subspecialty within internal medicine. Mm-hmm. If you're just seeing inpatients at a hospital for whether it's like cardiovascular morbidity issues, like all the endocrine issues, there's like, it's almost endless outside of, I would say, cancer patients he didn't really see, and any like surgical patients he wasn't seeing. But the point is that the pharmacotherapy umbrella, everything that falls under that was what he was dealing with every single day. Would come in, talk to him about their disease state for 5 to 10 minutes, and then prescribe or adjust what they had already had medication wise. And I was like, wow, I would have an enormous advantage within this realm of internal medicine. So then I thought for a while that, okay, I'll go to med school and I'll do an internal med residency. And then somehow along the way, in the midst of diving into podcasts of people that are not following the well-worn path of whatever 9-to-5 jobs and
people like Peter Attia, like Joe Rogan,
Tim Ferriss is a big one, Tom Bilyeu's a big one.
Yep.
People that I've never met but have come to really look up to through the means of podcasts and the books that they have written. Yeah. And it got me thinking in more of an entrepreneur-like mindset. So my friend Taylor and I, who I'm sure will be on this podcast at some point as a guest, are thinking about starting a supplement company in the future. Yeah. And by thinking about starting a supplement company, I mean we have already laid a lot of conceptual groundwork on said supplement company. And I won't go into the nooks and crannies for something that is far from being patented within our company ideas, but it would be pretty asinine for someone with a guaranteed good job, as in like a PharmD level job or go into med school in an MD level job, to step away from that and be like, okay, I'm going to grow my own company. Would be almost frowned upon by like, maybe the professors that have helped you along the way, and there's
like even any sort of like admissions committee or anything? Like if you go and tell them that, oh, I want to get this degree so I can start a company, they'd be like, dude, just go to like, business school or something.
It's the most expensive degree you could ever get.
Exactly. Yeah, it's like, why do you want to put yourself through all of this just to do something that like, no knock on like business degrees or anything like that, obviously, but it's just so much extra training in medicine to do something that's like, an entrepreneurial thing in the end. But I think that's a really cool idea.
Yeah.
And I'm definitely excited to see where that goes. And I'm sure that pharmacy background is really going to help with the supplement company.
Yeah, I agree. Without getting too specific into what we want to do as of now, I think what sets a pharmacist apart, and I'm sure also people within med school apart, and like any realm, doesn't have to just be supplements, it could be with food, sleep, etc., is evidence-based practices is what I think sets you apart. And it's not that other people that don't have that experience don't strive to be evidence-based, but it's just the way that you become phenomenal at coming up with some clinical question, like with this patient with this specific disease state with these parameters.
Yeah.
And like, can you take all of that and then ask some question about what therapy is right for them, and to look up that question, find a reliable answer within minutes is
exactly.
insane.
I feel like that's like one of the biggest takeaways so far that I've gotten out of like my higher education, because I would say right now I really don't know too much as far as like diagnoses or like even just like pathology, but the one biggest thing that I've learned in the last like 5 years in college and my first year of medical school was just so much like of learning how to figure out the answer to a problem on your own. So, like going to primary journal sources or going, somewhere on the web and just figuring out like, is this information legit? How do I like use this information? I think that's one of the biggest things that secondary education can provide you, because, the information's always out there that you can, you can memorize something any day of the week. But if you don't have the right tools to learn to apply that information into a bigger picture, it doesn't really matter that much, right? So that's one of the big advantages, I think, of education, like how we have it right now in America. But, I would say I just don't really feel like I know too much right now.
No, I'm with you, dude. I don't know if you have something similar to this at med school, but one of the classes that we have that spans, let me think, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 semesters of your PharmD program is called Care Lab. And it sounds silly, and at times it feels silly when you're in Care Lab, because they take this class and they try to teach you everything you won't learn within like learning about the pathologies and pharmacotherapy of everything else. It's not disease driven in what you're learning, it's practice driven. Like outside of the actual content of what you're using, like how do you practice as in this case a pharmacist, but really just as like a healthcare professional, like how do you conduct yourself in terms of even the minute details of like a good counseling session, like what sort of questions should you be thinking of. And one very long module is I think it's just called the drug information module, or like the information mastery module, but for close to an entire semester. It's the semester that I have just finished, which is the spring of my 4th year, which is called your P2 year for pharmacy. And you get really good at dissecting literature to answer clinical questions, and also just like drug information databases, things like, I don't know if you use these as well, but things like Dynamed, LexiComp, there's like different EBSCO host ones. Actually, I think like Dynamed is an EBSCO host one. Might be lying. Sorry, listeners.
So do you feel like pretty much, not any problem, but like most problems that somebody comes to you with, I'm sure you have friends and stuff that are like, hey, I'm like taking this thing. Like, what is it? Like I have people that come to me that are like, I'm out of breath today, or like, I have this like sore thing in my shoulder. It's like, what is it? It's like, just like thinking about it. Like, I don't know, like I need more information than that. Right. But it's also like, I feel like I have the tools to actually look into that and kind of do the digging for somebody, because we've kind of gained these like powerful, tools, I guess, to figure out how to dissect these problems.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. We even started learning and being introduced to, I should say, those informational tools, things like Dynamed, which is like disease state driven. So even though I had yet to learn in any classes about some disease state, if I were given a problem on like a type 2 diabetic, then I would type in type 2 diabetes on Dynamed, and then it would like go through by like diagnosis, prognosis, treatment, and give you different recommendations, and that would say like level 1 evidence, and then like there's some way you can like link off to like the literature that it's citing within that to like the actual primary literature within something like PubMed.
Yeah.
And to get really quick at being able to answer questions about a disease state or patient parameters that you previously knew nothing about becomes like a really good skill.
Yeah.
Something that like a question that might have taken me a full hour or more to answer, now I can answer reliably within a couple of minutes.
Yeah, because it's like all the information's already out there. You just kind of have to know where to look and, you know, how to sift out the maybe like extraneous information. Yeah, pretty cool. So
Alright.
what's like your main path right now, do you think? You're going to get your pharmacy degree. What are you thinking right after that?
I think if I were to stay true to myself and dive headfirst into that company, then I would work as much as I had to as most likely a clinical pharmacist at a hospital somewhere doing inpatient stuff, just because I feel like I'm using my knowledge most in a clinical setting. I think community pharmacy is like obviously necessary. It's just not for me to be at a community pharmacy. I really enjoy working in that clinical setting and getting asked to make drug therapy recommendations from physicians and PAs and nurses, and doing what we just talked about with your informational sources. So I would do that to make enough money to be making those lovely student loan payments.
Yeah.
And as I was doing that, use the extra money I had to pump into this company that Taylor and I would want to build together. And then ideally, when the company like would be picked up off the ground, then step away from pharmacy. Have a lot of people think I was a crazy man. They might be thinking that already.
Yeah, I think a lot of people think that with you out here doing marathons and stuff.
We can talk about that for a little, because that's something we're doing together.
Yeah, that's true. So the last few weeks I haven't been keeping up with my training, but yeah, I know. I was out in Milwaukee, and I was in Indiana, and then now I'm back home, but I'll have to do something this week.
So right now, Nick and I are training to qualify for the Boston. The one I'm signed up for is in September. You're looking at one in October.
Yeah, so it's quite a task. We'll see how it goes. High hopes, though. Definitely high hopes.
This is my second marathon I will have done, but the first one I did was my freshman year of college. My goal then was just to say that I ran a marathon. Yeah. So even though
it's already a huge task.
Yeah, but in hindsight, a lot easier than trying to hold a 7-minute, 6-second average on your mile averages for 26 miles.
Man.
So that's
crazy.
A fun time.
Yeah.
So that's something we're battling through right now. I haven't exceeded 12 miles yet, so about to close over that 13-mile hump.
Yeah. Whew. Yeah.
Fun stuff.
So I guess we had to bring that up because, like that saying that if you didn't talk about it, did you really run a marathon? So, just a little plug there for us.
I'm sure we'll be talking about it a lot in the future. We should shift it to you. What's going on in the life of Nick Gilbert?
Yeah, so Cole and I, we both grew up in the same hometown, played soccer together, all sorts of stuff like that, and got to know each other. But then I went off to Penn State when he still had one more year left in high school. So I got an undergraduate degree in biology and psychology. And I always knew that I wanted to go to medical school. So since my freshman year, I was always pushing for all these various different requirements that I saw on online, just like various research things, volunteering experiences, trying to get publications, things like that. So it was a pretty busy time, but I think I thought I was busier than I was. because when I got to medical school, so now I'm in Pittsburgh and in medical school, and boy, man, it really slapped you in the face when you get there.
I bet.
We started out with a 7-week course of anatomy. So all of anatomy combined just into 7 weeks, and we have the lab. So we're in the lab maybe 2 or 3 hours a day dissecting, and then on top of that, you got to go home and study after lecture. You have a couple other classes going on too at the same time, and I just wasn't ready for that. I did like a kind of preparatory course thing over the summer, just to kind of get the feel for it. But again, I was kind of like a little bit too headstrong and like overconfident, I think. But I kind of adjusted to it, and now I'm studying like you, probably like 5 or 6 hours a day. but it's just something you have to do. And throughout medical school so far, I think I got a pretty good handle on things now. We'll see what happens with second year. I just finished up my first year about 2 weeks ago, and everything went pretty well. I'm really enjoying it. But like you, I've met so many cool people already, like various professors, doctors, and even just like my classmates, that I feel like they have so many like cool ideas and cool things that like I just want to talk to them about, and I also want other people to know about. So I think this podcast is going to be awesome for that. So along with the medical school stuff, I'm also on a scholarship to get my medical school paid for through the U.S. Army. So that requires an Army commitment both this summer and next summer. I'm going to be doing training with them, and then I'll do a couple of my student rotations. So around the hospital and different clinics with the Army, my 3rd and 4th years of medical school. And then after medical school, I'll do a residency with the Army. So that'll be anywhere from 3 to 5, 6 years, depending on what I do. And then after that, I'll owe them 4 years of time. So it's a long track with the Army, but I'm really looking forward to it, actually. I think it's going to be another great experience. And one of the things I really value is just like camaraderie. Like our high school soccer team is a great example.
Yeah.
And just, going beyond that, even just like classmates throughout undergrad and medical school. It's great to really be in the trenches with somebody and with various different people when you're going through tough times. And I think that's one of the really nice things I'm going to enjoy about the Army, because I'm sure, it's not going to be the easiest.
Yeah,
but it's going to be great because, you always hear about stories of camaraderie in the military, and it's one of the things I'm really looking forward to. So I head out to Oklahoma in a week, less than a week now, and that's going to be my first set of training. It's called Direct Commission Course, or DCC. So I've never been in the Army before, so this is just a course for people that haven't been in the Army or any sort of military service. And you go and you basically just learn, what the Army is, and you learn how to march, you learn how to salute, all sorts of things like that. And it's only it's a 4-week course. I'll be back mid-July, and then the next summer I do a 5-week course called Bulk, which is Basic Officer Leadership course, and that's a little bit more geared toward training officers in the Army. And then after that, just some rotations, and I'm off to wherever the Army sends me, I guess. So yeah, I guess that's pretty much. I mean, obsessions, I don't know if I have like obsessions like you, Cole. You're just like above and beyond on everything. For me, I try and I'm more of the type to just like dabble in everything a little bit. So like with the marathon training, we're like 2 months in, and I'm like, this is great, but I also love biking. And I was like, if I like biking and running, maybe I can force myself to swim, and I'll do. So I didn't even I'm not even like halfway through marathon training. I'm already like distracted with another thought of like, oh, let's go do triathlon stuff now. So I think that's one of like the main things I need to focus on one thing, and I hope watching you is really going to help me with becoming more of like a focused person. Because I think my path in life anyways is very set already. I have the Army thing for the next 10 years. And it's like, I got to fit the rest of my life into this box, right? So I got to I kind of have to pick and choose and focus on just like a few things, and maybe get some obsessions. I don't know if I have quite the same willpower.
I still like that you do want to dabble in stuff. I feel like there's so many things that I shouldn't say so many things, but the things I am obsessed with now starts with, dabbling in something.
I mean, you have to feel it out too. You can't just, I had been running for a little bit before we decided this marathon thing, but you can't just be like, oh, I'm gonna go run a marathon and then train for 8 months if you hate it, right? I mean, you can force yourself through it, but I mean, what's the value in that? I guess other than like
mental fortitude.
I guess that's a good thing. But yeah, there's various different things I guess I'm interested in. Obviously medicine's a huge thing. Athletics is a big thing. I love pretty much all sorts of athletic competitions and things like that. I was on the cycling club team at Penn State. Did a lot of bike riding there. I wasn't the best at it, but I definitely enjoyed it. And now with the running, that's a big thing. I guess like a typical day for me, I would just go to the gym in the morning. I get up about 5 and go with my buddy to the gym right before class. I go to class, I don't know, I probably get home around 4 after that.
Long day.
Studying, yeah. And then, not much else, I guess. So it's like, I got to start picking and choosing a little bit more with things I want to focus on. Because when I get home for like the weekends and things like that, I don't know. I don't really know where I'm going with this, I guess. But yeah, I don't know. Looking forward to it.
I'm going to backtrack a little bit. You said that you aren't sure like exactly what residency you want to do yet.
Right, yeah.
What ideas are you tossing around residency-wise?
Man, I'm throwing a lot of ideas around. I just got back from a plastic surgery conference in Indiana, and it was really cool. I really enjoyed it, but I'm not sure I see myself doing plastic surgery. I think I could see myself in like general surgery or something like that, but plastics might be a little bit outside of my interest. But I think really what I like right now is just general medicine, like whether that be like a family practitioner or an internist or even just general surgery. I like I haven't really narrowed down a specific interest yet, which could be like a good or bad thing depending on how competitive that specific interest could be. But I think right now my main focus is probably going to be on internal medicine. I've been working at the free clinic in Pittsburgh. I've done a few shifts there, and I've really enjoyed it just because you kind of get like a continuity of care with that, and you get to see patients more than once, and you kind of build like a patient-provider relationship, even as a medical student. So it's pretty nice to have that, that extra thing on top of practicing medicine and building these relationships. So I think that's one of the big draws for me in general medicine. But, haven't really ruled anything out yet. So
yeah, I think it would be bad to immediately, like this far out, just roll everything out.
Yeah.
I think that was my issue, might be too strong of a word, but I was so tied to the fact of saying I wanted to be an orthopedic surgeon for a while that like I wasn't willing to explore at that point in time internal medicine, now something very off that path. But the point is that I put it out there that I wanted to do this thing, and I hated the idea of like, oh, I already said I'm going to do this, and now I'm going to like look like I'm not committed to my goal if I don't stick this out. So even though this other thing seems cool, like, well, shucks, I have to commit my life to this thing, which is a bad mentality to have.
I don't know. I mean, in some ways, yeah, but orthopedic surgery is one of those things where you kind of do have to commit to it really early because it's a super competitive field. So the people like you at the time, like that are really committed to orthopedic surgery, are going to start researching ortho like their first year of medical school, and they're going to be just set on that ortho path the whole time. And then you get somebody like, say, if I decided I wanted to do ortho in my third year, I'm not going to have any orthopedic surgery like research or anything like that. So when you look at the applications, they're probably going to pick the guy that's been dedicated to it for a while. So I mean, I think that's kind of a good lesson in life in general, is like if you have an idea of something that you think you might want to do, and it's like a really I don't know, like maybe it's a hard thing to get, aim for that. And then if you decide that you don't want that super hard specialty or that super competitive job field or something like that, if you decide that you don't want that, you've already done so much work that somebody in like a lower field or a less competitive field is still going to take you because they've seen that dedication. So I think that's something you're living by already. Like,
I hope so.
Yeah. So I don't know. Do you want to like try and wrap this up? I guess we've been talking for a little bit.
Yeah, I think we gave a pretty good idea of what we're all about.
Yeah, we hope you guys stay tuned with us. I know this could have been a little bit of like a drag on session here, but we just kind of want to introduce ourselves to you guys and let you know who we are and kind of what's to come here. So definitely stay tuned for some awesome guests. We'll try and give a couple previews maybe on our like our social media accounts, who we have ideas of bringing on. And like I said, we're very open to suggestions and, various insights. I think we're going to try and maybe do a segment, like maybe a 1-minute segment or less on each episode of, send us an email of like one insight that they have, maybe, if you're a business person or, you're a lawyer or something, like, what got you to that point and what kind of tools and, tricks did you use to get there? And we'll just feature that in the beginning of each episode. So we just set up all our accounts like literally an hour ago. So what's our Gmail?
So our Gmail is insightsofalltrades@gmail.com, and that Insights of All Trades is our handle on Instagram. And then on Twitter, because of the character limit, it was IOAT podcast.
Yep.
But if you just look up Insights of All Trades, that's our username for everything.
And we're also on Facebook. And, leave a comment in the YouTube, or whatever platform you're using. And yeah, we'd be happy to hear from you guys.
Yeah, please DM or email your insights.
Yeah, of course. So thanks for joining us on this first one. And hopefully we'll see you guys again soon.
See you, everybody.